Our car tester Emmanuel Schaefer is checking out the new XF, whose release marks Jaguar's 80th anniversary. The first generation came out in 2007, and it's been the best-selling Jag ever since. The new generation has been given a technical and visual overhaul. The British business sedan recently appeared in German showrooms. The basic 2-liter 120-kilowatt e-Performance diesel version has a starting price of just over 41,000 euros. But we tested the largest of the 3 available diesel motors, the 3-liter. Our car tester says it's 225 kilowatts or 300 horsepower, predestined for solid driving performance. The XF accelerates from 0 to 100 in just 6.2 seconds and reaches a top speed of 250 kilometers an hour. The manufacturer rates fuel consumption at a low 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers. Emmanuel says the driver can choose among 4 different driving modes at the push of a button: a sporty dynamic, normal, eco to save fuel, or winter for wintry road conditions. The 8-speed automatic transmission is standard with the 3-liter engine. In the other models, it costs 2,500 euros extra. The exterior of the XF exudes sportiness. LED bifunction xenon headlights with intelligent high beams cost 1,550 euros. From the side, the Jaguar's flat silhouette underscores its dynamism. The rear lights wrap around on the sides. 2 chrome-plated exhaust pipes add to the sporty look. Our car tester notes that Jaguar has added an additional 51 millimeters to the new XF's wheelbase. Backseat passengers reap the benefit: more legroom. The price of each of the XF models includes the No Worries Jaguar Care Package with a 3-year guarantee, no matter how many kilometers you put on it. That includes all regular inspections and a mobility guarantee, which means you receive an alternative vehicle while your car is being repaired. The big 8-inch in-control touchscreen functions intuitively, like a smartphone. Emmanuel says the interior fulfills the high expectations placed on Jaguar. Good workmanship is everywhere. He has one nit to pick, though: the high-gloss black surface around all the buttons, which highlights every fingerprint. The new Jaguar XF's underbody is 75% aluminum. This enabled the engineers to make the car 190 kilograms lighter than its predecessor. At the same time, this increases torsional stiffness by 28%, which greatly enhances the handling dynamics. As is customary in this class of car, the XF has a wide array of driver assistance systems, including a lane assistant, a lane departure warning, adaptive cruise control, and a traffic sign recognition system. Like the F-Type and the XJ, the new XF is manufactured at the Jaguar Land Rover factory in Castle Bromwich, England. Emmanuel concludes that the new generation of the Jaguar XF is an extremely well-designed car offering little to criticize, so it has the best chances of continuing the success story of its predecessor. When Otto Käsbohr introduced the Setra S6 in 1955, industry specialists thought it was the bee's knees. The vehicle not only had 6 rows of seats, but also a self-supporting body and independent suspension, which were unusual back then. It was innovative bus design because in those days, most manufacturers built bus bodies on truck chassis, which had rigid axles. Artista Matas Kurat says that bus drivers 60 years ago confirmed that on the road. The S6 handled like a car. Matas adds that compared to a modern car, it's quite different, but you really do get that impression if you're driving a vintage car from the same era. Matas says the gear shift on the steering column takes some getting used to because you don't shift the gears the same way. It's up front, down front, rather than right front, right back. It's a little bit different. He says you can hear the transmission, which is saying, "Hello, I'm the gearbox and wanted to say hi." The S6 was the smallest Setra ever built, with a capacity of 26 people, including the driver. Its 66 kilowatt, 1.4 liter engine allows the bus to cruise at around 100 kilometers an hour. Even today, coaches aren't allowed to go faster in Germany. Matas says it can only get up to 100 kilometers per hour on straightaways or going downhill, so prepare to take it slow. But back in 1955, speed wasn't so important. Matas says back then the cars didn't go much faster than 120 kilometers per hour either, so the Setra S6 wouldn't have been perceived as slow. But today, however, he says he feels as if he's blocking traffic. Still, Matas says the nice thing about driving an old bus is that everyone looks, smiles, and waves. Back then, the lines of the S6 were state-of-the-art design. These days, the bus's curves are more reminiscent of a beetle or a fish. The independent suspension was more of a necessity than an innovation. At 6 meters 70 long, the overhangs were too short to work with fixed axles. The driver sits behind a bakelite steering wheel and a clearly arranged instrument panel. Unlike today, the signal light lever was located on the right, next to the gear shift. Passengers got to sit on comfortable seats in standard 1950s modern style. Matas finds the S6's panoramic windows particularly charming. He says these broad expanses of glass are no longer possible today for technical reasons. But back then, on sunny days, he says, you could pull down a shade and chill out a bit.
Und hält's auch noch ein bisschen aus.
60 decades of development later, a bus looks like this. Matas says he can drive the S6 with his driver's license, but not the new S511 HD. It's too heavy and several generations away from the S6 technically. He asked if they have anything at all in common. Daimler representative Matthias Lenz says the S6's self-supporting body was pioneering back then. He refers to an old photograph showing 6 people carrying the frame and tells Matas this construction principle is still used in modern buses. Matas asks if there's anything about the old bus's interior that is still the same today. Just like the 511 of today, the S6 was a tour bus. You no longer see the panoramic roof windows, but its seating system was innovative. The seats reclined, and if a neighbor got too close for comfort, the seat could be shifted a bit into the aisle. Matas notes that the seats are a key feature for the passengers because most of the people in the bus use them, so he's taking a closer look at the modern model. Matas must first climb 6 steps to reach the passenger compartment. Every row of seats has footrests, a small back seat pocket, and a fold-down tray table. The seats can easily be shifted sideways, the armrests raised, and the seat back reclined. A storage shelf for hand luggage is located over the windows. The S511 HD's 10.7-liter diesel straight-six engine delivers 290 kilowatts of power to ensure a constant cruising speed, even going uphill. That's a cut above the small engine in the S6, but those aren't the only important features in a bus. Mata says many safety features have been added since the S6 first hit the road 60 years ago.
Dem S6 bestimmt auch einiges getan, oder?
Ja, klar, sehr wohl.
Matthias Lentz lists them. The bus is series produced with the ABA2 autonomous cruise control system. It keeps the bus from colliding with vehicles in front of it. And if a crash is unavoidable, it reduces the speed ahead of the collision. Driver safety is also crucially important. If there's a crash, the driver is pulled back into the interior of the bus. And finally, there's annular ribbing to protect the passengers, which prevents the bus from collapsing into the passenger compartment if it overturns. In short, a person traveling in a bus today is as well protected as they would be in a car. Mata says there isn't much difference between cars and buses. Each new model is more comfortable, roomier, safer, and more efficient, better than their predecessors in almost all ways. But no matter, he says, people still light up when they see a vintage bus cruising down the highway.
So ein Schätzchen sieht, oder?
After introducing its 5-door model, Opel is now adding a new station wagon to its Astra lineup, the Sports Tourer. The car also boasts a brand new engine, the 1.6-liter CDTI Whisper diesel. The 118-kilowatt engine already produces maximum torque of 350 newton-meters at low revs. It's economical too, needing just 4.2 liters of fuel to travel 100 kilometers. Next year, Nissan will introduce a new version of the Leaf, the world's best-selling electric car. The new Leaf should have a 250-kilometer range when fully charged. That's more than any other electric car in its class. If the starting price of almost 34,000 euros is too steep, you can lower it by 5,000 euros by agreeing to rent the battery rather than buy it. It looks familiar from the outside, but the technology has changed a lot. Fiat gave their Ibiza series a makeover. They vamped up the compact car's electronics and reworked its engine. The basic gasoline model now sports a 1-liter 3-cylinder engine. The naturally aspirated version comes with 75 horsepower, while the Eco TSI turbo alternative boasts up to 110. In Germany, prices for the Spanish car range from 11,990 to 21,940 euros. Reinhold Deisenhofer, our car tester, says the new Ibiza has a lot to offer, particularly on the inside. The exterior makeover is rather subtle, but there is a choice of colors for the decorative strips around the grille, the mirror caps, and the rims. It's what's on the inside that counts. But tastes differ, so Fiat lets customers make the Ibiza's newly designed interior match their gusto. Reinhold takes a look at the new Ibiza's inside and points out some changes. Its steering wheel is exactly the same as in the bigger Leon. The center display between the speedometer and rev counter showing useful information got bigger. The navigation system now also comes in 6.5 inches. A special feature, drivers can connect their smartphone to the Ibiza within seconds. Changes on the outside are less obvious. Customers still love the Ibiza's modern exterior design, so Fiat only tweaked it a little. The compact car got new headlamps with LED daytime running lights and new 16 or 17-inch alloy wheels with touches of color. The trunk holds 292 liters, or even 938 liters once the seatbacks are flipped. Fiat product manager Torsten Becker points out a function called Full Link. Drivers can use it to hook up their Apple or Android devices to the Ibiza. Sounds complicated? Just imagine a laptop being connected to a projector. It's the same principle. Torsten asks his smartphone what's the weather like in Berlin. The reply, it's not great today. It's raining and the lowest temperature is 7 degrees. A brand new generation of gasoline and diesel engines power the Ibiza. Our test car is equipped with a 1.2-liter TSI engine, which consumes an average of 4.9 liters in 100 kilometers, according to Fiat. The top speed is 184 kilometers per hour. The Ibiza got a more fine-tuned steering and softer suspension to make its handling mimic the bigger Leons. The Ibiza style we drove for our test cost 15,990 euros in Germany. Early next year, the more powerful top-of-the-range Cupra will complete the product range. It will come with a 1.8-liter, 192-horsepower turbo gasoline engine. Einhold's verdict, the Ibiza makeover convinced him, especially the reworked chassis. He says it's fun to crunch the gears. His tip is the 1-liter version sporting 3 cylinders and 110 horsepower because it has a top speed of 200 kilometers per hour with low fuel consumption. Making affordable small cars for the common person is an Italian specialty. This tradition began in the 1930s with the first series production compact to boast a 4-cylinder engine, the Fiat 500, better known as the Topolino. Our classic car expert Christoph Bauer explains the origin of the Little Mouse. He says that in 1933, Fiat patriarch Giovanni Agnelli commissioned a 29-year-old engineer named Dante Giacosa to develop an economical small car. Its selling price was to be not more than 5,000 lira, just half that of a Fiat Palmilla, the company's cheapest model at the time. And the new car needed to be more comfortable, powerful, and good-looking than the competition from Germany and France. Christoph feels that was a tall order for a young engineer, but when it went into production in 1936, the Fiat 500 fulfilled all of the criteria but one. It cost 8,900 lira, not 5,000. Still, a pretty fair price, Christoph thinks. Beginning in 1936, the little Fiat was assembled on a modern production line at the carmaker's Lingotto plant in Turin. By 1954, some 520,000 A, B, and C model Topolinos had been built. Aside from the sedan, the 500 was also available as a station wagon, initially called the Giardiniera, and later the Belvedere. But how did the Fiat 500 come to be known as the Topolino? Christoph says that in the early 1930s, Walt Disney's Mickey Mouse became popular in Italy. But due to licensing issues, Mickey was known here as Topolino, or Mauslino. And because the 500's freestanding headlights bear a slight resemblance to Mickey's ears, it soon was given the nickname Topolino. The Fiat 500 proved to be robust, durable, and fuel efficient. It has rear-wheel drive, like most models of its day. But other than that, its basic structure is very similar to that of modern compacts. Christoph says the Topolino seats 2 adults comfortably, with space for luggage behind the seats. There's no trunk lid. You could fit 2 children in back here. But Christoph says Italians love to fill their Topolinos up to the roof. And if it had a nice, soft top like this one, then even beyond that. No one cared that the maximum payload was just 50 kilos. But then Fiat had sold it as a fully fledged car. By 1938, Fiat had equipped the axles with longer leaf springs, so carrying lots of cargo was no longer an issue. The magazine Motor und Sport says the Topolino could travel 100 kilometers on 7.5 liters of gas, the best fuel consumption ever seen at the time. Later, 500B models, like this one, use just 5 liters per 100 clicks, though likely a bit more when going uphill.
Mit nur 5 Litern aufkommen. Wenn es einen Berg rauf geht, vielleicht auch mehr.
When it comes to design, Christoph says the Topolino is clearly influenced by the streamlined shapes that were popular in the 1930s. Even the door handles are sunken to improve the car's drag coefficient. He notes that only when the body is secured to the light ladder frame does the Topolino have the necessary stiffness. It was a clever way of reducing the car's weight, which also lowered its cost and fuel consumption. For the same reason, parts of the frame were perforated, a technique that had previously only been used in airplanes and race cars. And the car also used these little 15-inch wheels, specially made by Pirelli, which made the car look big and dynamic. This Topolino belongs to the relatively rare B series, which was only built from 1948 to 1949. Its much-loved retractable textile roof came as standard, and a redesigned dashboard pepped up the car's Spartan interior. But the model's most important improvements are to be found under the hood. Christoph says the main difference between the Fiat 500B and its predecessor is the engine. While the A used a side valve engine, the B had overhead valves. This technical innovation gave the car a big power boost, from 13 horsepower to 16.5 horsepower. Usually, the radiator is found up here, behind the engine, enabling the car to have a sleek and aerodynamic front end. And of course, Fiat put the engine as far forward as possible to create more interior space. So, while the firm was bent on saving money, they didn't scrimp on technology. Christoph says the only drawback is the crankshaft, which only has 2 main bearings. So after just 50,000 kilometers, the engine often needs an overhaul. But the throaty-sounding inline 4-cylinder engine has to work pretty hard. Its 0.6 liters of cubic capacity means it can reach just 95 kilometers an hour. Just enough for the Autostrada, Italian motorways. But the Topolino is best for winding its way through narrow city streets, like here in Trentino. Christoph says for people with big feet like him, the car is not so easy to drive because the pedals are so close together. But otherwise, it's great fun to drive around with the wind in your hair. And in its day, the Topolino impressed car testers too. One German magazine praised its low center of gravity, good weight distribution, and great road holding. But first and second gears aren't synchronized, so when downshifting, you really need to double declutch. But Italians love to do that anyway. They call it la doppietta. Topolinos weren't just popular in Italy. They were exported around the globe, to as far away as China, Australia, and the U.S. The little Fiat was also produced under license by NSU in Germany, Steyr-Puch in Austria, and Simca in France. Christoph says the Topolino was Italy's best-selling car until the mid-1950s. Some 520,000 were built. It brought mobility to the masses in Italy, like the VW Beetle did in Germany and the Citroën 2CV did in France. With its lightweight construction and quality technology, it was years ahead of the competition, and it established the Fiat brand as specialist for stylish, high-quality, small cars, making the Topolino a milestone in automotive history. Dante Giacosa, the Topolino's creator, worked for Fiat for almost half a century, developing dozens of other models for the car maker. Fiat later revived the 500 name and continues to produce 500 badge Super Minis to this day.